The dog slept under the crib every night, until one night he didn't. What happened next forced a young mother to call 911 and changed everything she thought she knew about loyalty, instinct, and love. By editorial team. 12-minute read. Emotional, must read. He was already there when she got home from the hospital, waiting at the door, tail low, nose lifted high, reading the air like a sentence only he could understand. The baby was 6 days old. The dog was 4 years old. And from that very first night, without anyone asking him to, Bruno chose his place in the world. Curled beneath the wooden crib, his chin resting on his front paws, his amber eyes half open in the dark. Every single night, for 9 weeks straight, that is where he was. Until the night he wasn't. The beginning. A house rearranged around a tiny heartbeat. Sarah Milligan had always been what people politely call a dog person. Not in the casual, "oh, I like dogs" way. In the full, "my dog sleeps in the bed, I cancel plans when he seems sad" way. Bruno, a large golden-brown Labrador mix she had adopted at 8 months old from a rural shelter, was her first commitment that felt entirely real. Before her husband, James, before the mortgage, before everything. So when she found out she was pregnant, one of her first quiet worries was about Bruno. Not about diapers or finances or sleep deprivation, the things everyone warned her about. She worried about whether Bruno would feel replaced, whether the bond between them, carefully built over 4 years of morning runs and movie nights and lonely Saturdays, would survive the seismic arrival of another life. She read articles. She consulted her vet. She introduced the baby's hospital blanket to Bruno 3 days before coming home, letting him press his long nose into the fabric and breathe in the newness of what was coming. The vet had told her to do this. "Let him prepare," the vet said. "Dogs don't adjust well to surprises." What no one told Sarah was that Bruno didn't need to adjust at all. He had already decided. The moment she carried little Nora through the front door, small, pink-faced, wrapped in a white swaddle that made her look like a very serious burrito, Bruno sat perfectly still. He did not jump. He did not bark. He leaned forward slightly from his spot on the rug, sniffed the air in the direction of the baby, and then simply stood and walked to the nursery as if he had been handed a job and had already clocked in. That night, he slept under the crib. And the night after that. And the night after that. Growing unease. The comfort of routine and the quiet warning beneath it. 9 weeks passed in the exhausted blur that only new parents truly understand. Sarah was operating on broken sleep and cold coffee, stumbling through a life that no longer had clear edges between day and night. James went back to work at the end of week 2, and so most nights it was just Sarah, the baby, and Bruno, the 3 of them locked in their own small world at the end of the hallway. She grew dependent on Bruno in ways she hadn't expected, not just emotionally, but practically. When Nora fussed at 2 a.m. and Sarah was too deep in sleep to register it immediately, Bruno would appear at her bedside and nudge her arm with his nose. When Sarah finally dragged herself to the nursery to check the baby, she would find Bruno already there, sitting upright next to the crib, watching Nora with an intensity that almost looked like concern. "He's better than a baby monitor," she told her mother on the phone one afternoon, laughing. She wasn't entirely joking. There is something in a dog that operates below the level of language, below the level of thought even. A pure electric attentiveness that humans have largely forgotten how to feel. Looking back, Sarah would later say that there were signs. Small things she had noticed but filed away as quirks, as the odd behaviors of a loving but slightly neurotic dog. In the final days before everything changed, Bruno had been different. Not anxious exactly, but watchful in a new way. He had started standing at the nursery door during the day and sniffing deeply at the threshold before entering. He had begun refusing his evening walks with an unusual firmness, sitting down at the end of the driveway and simply not moving, his eyes fixed on the house behind him. She had chalked it up to the cold. November had come in sharp and gray, and Bruno had always preferred warmth. She bought him a new blanket. She gave him an extra treat at dinner. She told James about it over text, and he had replied with a dog emoji and a laughing face, which was not helpful. She did not know that Bruno was telling her something. She did not know that she had, at most, 4 days left of normal. Stories like this one matter. If this is moving you, share it with someone who loves dogs or someone who needs a reminder that loyalty still exists in this world. Share this story. The night everything changed. The night Bruno disappeared and what he was doing instead. It was a Wednesday. Sarah knew this only because she had a pediatrician appointment on Thursday morning and had spent part of that evening mentally rehearsing the questions she planned to ask. She had fed Nora at 11, changed her, placed her in the crib, and turned on the white noise machine, the one shaped like a cloud that her sister had given her at the baby shower. She had shuffled back to her own bed, pulled the covers up, and fallen asleep almost immediately. At 2:47 a.m., she woke up. Not because of the baby. Nora was silent. The house was silent. The white noise machine hummed faintly down the hall. But something was wrong, and Sarah knew it before she was even fully conscious, the way you sometimes know in dreams that the dream is about to turn. Bruno was not in the room. This should not have been alarming. Dogs move around at night. But Sarah had spent 9 weeks waking to the reliable warmth of his presence, the soft sound of his breathing somewhere nearby, and his absence was loud in a way she could not immediately explain. She lay still for a moment, listening. Then she heard it. A low, continuous sound. Not barking, not whining. Something between the two. A sustained, urgent vibration, like a wire pulled too tight. It was coming from the nursery. She was down the hallway in seconds. Bruno was standing in the center of the nursery, not under the crib, not beside it, but directly in front of it, his body angled toward the wall. He was not looking at the baby. He was looking at the baseboard heater that ran along the left wall, the old electric unit that the previous owners had installed and that Sarah had meant to have inspected and never quite gotten around to. She had chalked it up to the cold. November had come in sharp and gray, and Bruno had always preferred warmth. She bought him a new blanket. She gave him an extra treat at dinner. She told James about it over text, and he had replied with a dog emoji and a laughing face, which was not helpful. She did not know that Bruno was telling her something. She did not know that she had, at most, 4 days left of normal. She called 911 from the front yard, standing in the November cold in her socks, Nora pressed against her chest. The fire department arrived 9 minutes later. The lead firefighter, a calm woman with short gray hair, told Sarah that the heater's internal wiring had been degrading for some time. There was significant heat buildup inside the wall cavity. Given another hour or two, possibly less, it would almost certainly have ignited. The nursery, the firefighter said carefully, was the most at-risk room in the house. Sarah did not say anything. She looked down at Bruno, who was sitting beside her on the frozen lawn, his shoulder pressing warm against her leg. What it means. What Bruno knew that we have no words for. In the weeks that followed, after the heater was replaced, after the walls were opened and inspected, after the long and sleepless debrief with James, who had driven home from a work trip at 4 a.m., Sarah tried many times to explain what had happened, to her mother, to her friends, to herself. The explanations were always inadequate. Scientists will tell you that dogs possess an olfactory system roughly 40 times more sensitive than humans, that they can detect chemical changes in the air, ozone, burning insulation, overheating metal, long before those smells register as anything recognizable to us. That what Bruno was doing, in scientific terms, was simply responding to an environmental stimulus his nose had identified as dangerous. This is true, and it is also somehow not the whole truth. Because what Sarah kept coming back to, the thing she could not file away or reduce to biology, was the duration. Bruno had not panicked. He had not barked the house awake on the first night he detected something wrong. Instead, according to Sarah's reconstruction of those final days, he had watched. He had stayed close. He had refused the evening walks. He had stood at the nursery threshold and breathed the air. He had given her every signal he was capable of giving within the limits of the language available to him, and when those signals went unread, he had simply waited until the moment was serious enough that she could not miss it. He had been patient with her. He had trusted her to eventually understand. That is not stimulus and response. That is something that takes a much longer word to name. He had been patient with her. He had trusted her to eventually understand. That is not stimulus and response. That is something that takes a much longer word to name. Sarah had Bruno's veterinary checkup moved up after the incident. The vet found nothing wrong with him. He was healthy, a little overweight as always, his coat thick for winter. The vet listened to the story carefully and then said something Sarah has repeated many times since. Dogs don't decide to love you. They just do. And once they do, it's total. Total, that was the word. Bruno slept under the crib again that very night. The new heater was electric and modern and safe, and the inspector had cleared every wall in the house, and there was no reason for worry. But Bruno slept under the crib anyway, because Nora was there, and because that was where he had decided he belonged. Some nights Sarah sits in the nursing chair in the corner of the room and watches them both in the dark, her daughter breathing softly above, her dog breathing softly below. And she feels something she still doesn't have a proper word for. Gratitude doesn't cover it. Love is close but too ordinary. It is something more like wonder. The particular wonder of realizing that someone was watching over you before you even knew you needed watching over. Nora is 2 years old now. She has learned to say brew, which is close enough. She toddles over to him in the morning and places both of her small hands flat on his head, and he sits very still and lets her, his tail moving in long, slow sweeps across the floor. He still sleeps under the crib, every single night. Some guards don't wear uniforms, some heroes never make a sound, and some love stories happen entirely in the dark, quiet, faithful, and absolute.